All across the country, thousands of people protested the Trump administration in a massive movement. It's expected this will be the largest single-day mobilization since President Trump returned to office in January, with people in all 50 states participating in some sort of No King rally. While the vast majority of protests were peaceful, some turned chaotic, including here in Portland. This video shows the moment Portland police first declared a riot outside of the ICE facility at around 6:30 last night after a federal officer was injured by the crowd. The federal officer did not require medical treatment. Police ordered people to leave the area of South Moody and Bancroft or face arrest. Some agents fired tear gas into the crowd, warning physical force could be next if protesters continue to be violent. Police arrested one person for an attempted assault of an officer. Police say they saw some criminal behavior throughout the night. They made 2 more arrests. One was after police saw someone throw a rock at the building. Officers reported being pepper sprayed while making that arrest. At 1 this morning, police arrested a 3rd person on Southwest McAdam Boulevard, who they say was picking up traffic control devices and putting them in his truck. Portland police say all 3 arrests were strictly focused on criminal actions and not constitutionally protected free speech.